can go ahead and get started here. So this is, again, the Eveleth Gilbert School Board Candidate Forum. I am Jeff Zupitz, and I'm the moderator for tonight. Welcome and thank you for your attendance, everyone. Candidates, community members, and Teachers Union for arranging the forum. I do have an announcement here. This is coming from Derek Molnar, so I'm just going to announce it for everyone. And this is just in his words. Dear Eveleth Gilbert District residents, supporters, and educators. Can you still hear me this way? Yeah? A little bit higher? Okay. I am saddened today the Department of Defense does allow Title 32 National Guard military members to run for and hold an elective office. However, any military member activated to Title 10 status for more than 270 days cannot run for political office or participate in politic activity while on Title 10 activity duty. I'm activated for more than 270 days. All military members who run for or hold political office must allow the restrictions defined in the DoD directive. Under Title 10 state, I am required to withdraw my candidacy from ISD 2154 public office. Unfortunately, this is our current situation. I will continue to serve our communities by other means in the future. Good luck to all the wonderful candidates. May your path be narrow and straight. God bless. Respectfully, Captain Derek Molnar. Okay, I'm gonna move on to guidelines, and I'm just gonna read here, so bear with me. The premise of the forum tonight is an opportunity for candidates to present their positions on local school board topics to the community and for community members to have an opportunity to ask questions for the candidates. Candidates are asked to keep their responses focused on their positions, on the topics presented, and be respectful of other candidates. Each candidate has been given a list of 10 questions prior to the forum. Community members have index cards available to form their own questions for the candidates. Please write one question legibly per index card and place it in the box provided. And that was discussed earlier. Community members are asked to keep their questions focused on the school board topics. The moderator, which is me, will screen all questions, and respectfully worded questions will be read by the candidates. Each candidate will be given 3 minutes for opening statements to introduce themselves. Following the opening statements, each candidate will be asked a question from the list of prepared questions and be given 3 minutes to respond. I will begin with the candidate to my far left for the first question and allow each candidate his or her allotted time to respond. Subsequent questions will begin with the next candidate to the right, and so on. We will adhere strictly to the time limits and ask candidates to immediately wrap up their statements when their time expires. After completion of the prepared questions, a short intermission will be taken to gather and organize questions from the community members. Community members' questions will be read to the candidates, and candidates may respond if they wish within 3 minutes. At the conclusion of all questions or allotted time, candidates will be given 3 minutes for a closing statement. Again, as a reminder, voting takes place on November 6th. Thanks to all our candidates once more for participations, and thank you for the community members for being here tonight. I will go ahead and start, Darlene, and you can go with the opening statement. There you go.
Hi, I'm Darlene Johnson. I grew up north of Virginia in the country and attended the Virginia School District until the end of 8th grade. Beginning of 9th grade, my family moved to Gilbert, and I attended school here. I married a guy from Eveleth, and we had 2 children. Shortly after that, I was divorced, and so I was a single parent. Both of my children attended the Gilbert school, and then when it merged, they attended the Eveleth Gilbert school. I have a grandson who now attends Eveleth Gilbert school. In 1981, I took the secretarial degree at the Eveleth Vocational School. At that time, I was hired as Indian Education Director for the Virginia School District. I worked there for 8 years, and of course that was a 9-month position, so in the summers I worked at Iron World. In both positions I was helping to tutor, to teach, and also took many hours of social worker aid, clock hours. I was a grant writer. I also wrote a grant for a chemical dependency program, which I ran for 1 year. I also wrote a grant for summer school for students to attend at the Eveleth Vocational School at that time and Missouri College. They were a hands-on program. Kids went and did the optical program and graphic arts, and they got to do the hands-on activities that were there to help them decide what they wanted to do with their future. Well, once that was done, my kids were in high school, and I decided that I wanted to be a teacher. So I enrolled at Bemidji State University and received a degree in elementary ed and early childhood. And my first job was at Grand Portage. I went for an interview as a teacher. Within a few days, they called me back and said they wanted me to be a principal. So my first job out was a principal. So then I enrolled in St. Cloud State. I got my principal's and superintendent license through there. Got lonesome for home. My kids are down here, so I moved back home. Worked at Aurora for 1 year, special ed program. Again, I didn't have that licensure, so I went and enrolled at UMD. Got my LD and EBD license there. After that, I went to St. Louis County Schools. And I worked in K through 12 special ed and K through 6 in regular education. I'm also a Boost Up Smart trainer, which I did daily in my classrooms. That's a program to help kids with fine motor skills, large motor skills. I did after school daycare, and I was also hired in the pilot program that St. Louis County did for QCOM. I was hired to observe teachers and help them to become more proficient, and if they were doing a good job, I tell them they were doing a good job in that area too. I retired 3 years ago. I subbed for 2. I took 1 year off, and I miss working, and I need to get back in the system again. That's why I'm running for school board.
Thanks. And then thanks, Jeff, for moderating. I'm sure we're in good hands, having watched you arbitrate a few JV basketball games over the years. Thanks to everyone for coming out here today, especially to Polly and Darlene for joining me up here. This is a new experience for me, and I already have a newfound appreciation for those who serve or at least aspire to do so. Finally, and most of all, thank you to Education Minnesota for hosting this forum. You are the heart and soul of our district, and while we will not always agree, you will always have my utmost respect. My father, Matt Schoberg, was an innovative and some would say a maverick educator. He was a teacher and coach for 35 years in the Aurora White Lakes district, which became Mesaba East. His entire career consisted of one job. I hesitate to call it a job. For him, it was really a passion. It's not uncommon, some 25 years after he retired, for a former student of his to tell me the impact that he had on his or her life. All 3 of our children received a solid educational foundations here at Eveleth Gilbert. Our daughter Madeline, a 2013 graduate, is in her first year teaching grades 9-12 social studies in ISD 916. That's a Northeast Metro special ed district in Little Canada. Our oldest son John, a 2017 graduate, plans to pursue a degree in teaching physical education and coaching at UMD next year after he finishes his AA at Mesabi. We couldn't be prouder or more supportive of their career choices. Now, Joe, on the other hand, Joe plans to pursue a degree in civil engineering after he graduates, we hope, this spring. Kudos to Joe for pursuing such a rigorous academic discipline. I'm a 4th generation range native, was born in Sedan, literally in the shadow of an iron mine. After growing up in White Lakes, I graduated from Aurora White Lakes High School in UMD. After that, I followed the bright lights and career opportunities to the Twin Cities. After working in finance and banking in the metro area for about 7 years, I had the opportunity to return home where I accepted a position with the IRRB in 1991. I purchased our home on the Eveleth Golf Course in Fail Township in 1992, married Kathy, whose father also was a teacher shortly thereafter. Today I'm responsible for all the agency's private and public non-educational financing programs with an operating budget of about $2.5 million, annual project budget of over $20 million, and a loan and investment portfolio of close to $100 million. I look very much forward to our discussion tonight. Again, thanks for letting me be part of it.
I also want to thank Education Minnesota Local 1991 and Jeff Zupitz for being the moderator and for sponsoring, and all of you for attending and having an interest in taking your time to be here. I'm a lifelong resident of Eveleth and have two grown daughters, adult daughters, Margie and Rosie Deblock. They have attended the Eveleth Gilbert schools, and of course they were born and raised here. I'd like to just tell you a little bit about how I got started with my interest in education. When the girls were in grade school in about the mid-'80s, I read a book by Rudolph Flesch called Why Johnny Can't Read. That led to other books and information on education that continued to pique my interest. I began attending Eveleth school board meetings, and that was before consolidation, and I became familiar with the local issues and became active in some school affairs. In 1987, I was encouraged by two school board members and others in the community to run for the school board. So I was elected and served 16 consecutive years until about 2007, 2008. And when I didn't run for election, but I've continued my interest and activity in education since then at the local, state, regional, and national levels.
Okay, thank you. The second question here will be going to the right, so we'll be having Matt. You'll be starting this one off.
So we're on the second. I thought we were on the first question.
Right, well, technically it's the first. I was just kind of in my own mind marking down as opening statement as the first, but so we're just moving on to this one right now, okay? So the question is, what has motivated you to want to run for a position on the Eveleth Gilbert School Board?
I've always aspired to be a politician and just never had the guts to file. Now, seriously, I really think that I can help provide our current and future students with the best possible opportunities in academics, athletics, and the fine arts. As I mentioned, our two sons, John and Joe, will in all likelihood hopefully be out of the house next year. We'll be empty nesters, and as much as I look forward to spending more time with my wife, I think moderation is not a bad thing in life. So I'll have additional time in addition to that. I've basically, while I've been very active in the community over the years, I've backed off on a little bit of that in that I'm no longer coaching baseball in the summer, and I'm also no longer the trustee and treasurer at a Resurrection Church, which has freed up a lot of my time for other duties. I just think my skill set, and well, I guess I don't want to get ahead of things here.
Who's right? You're right or they're right?
I was thinking my right.
Colleen should be
So as I'm
Darlene.
looking,
No, it's going this way. Colleen, it's going this way.
so, Colin, yeah, so.
Okay. What has motivated me to run for the position? I've had ongoing interest and activity in education for the past 3 decades, and I have pride in our schools and communities, and I think my educational experiences and skills, which I think I'm going to be addressing in the next question, in my previous experience on the board, I have extensive understanding of the operations, issues, and history of the district, and I believe I'd be able to offer useful input to the current and future direction of the district and the education of our students.
I've worked in all positions. I was a principal. I was a director of a number of different programs. I was a classroom teacher, and I'm retired. I just feel no matter what direction our school goes in, that students are a priority. And I feel I want to be here to help reach that goal, wherever it goes.
Thank you. The next question, which in this case will be going to Pollyanna. Okay.
You read it or shall I?
I'll read it and then you can answer from there. So the question is, what experiences and skills have prepared you to serve on the school board?
Well, although I don't have any bachelor's degrees or shiny experiences and educational accomplishments as my other two candidates, I have completed extensive coursework in independent study in the areas of liberal arts, political science, legal studies, real estate, managing nonprofits, and graphic design. Again, I've gained 16 years of experience with the Eveleth and Eveleth Gilbert school districts combined, including working through the process of peering and sharing and consolidation. Should consolidation be considered in the future, my experience and knowledge in those areas I think would be an asset. I have education-related experience and leadership in local, regional, and state and national levels. Locally, I served on numerous school boards and district-wide committees. Regionally, I served on the following boards: the East Range Vocational Technical Board, the Range Association of Municipalities and Schools, which is RAMS, the St. Louis County Family Services Collaborative, and the Blandon Leadership Program. Statewide, I was appointed by the Commissioner of Education to the first Academic Standards Committee for Language Arts. I was a member of the Minnesota Association of Technical Colleges, and I was on the Legislative Platform Committee for the Minnesota School Board Association. And I have testified before the House of Representatives Education Committee. Nationally, I was appointed by the second Commissioner of Education to serve on the National Forum of Education Statistics, which is an offshoot of the National Center for Education Statistics. And I've served in that role since I was on the board previously until a couple of years ago as the local education LEA, Local Education Agency representative for the state of Minnesota. So while I was on that board, I was part of a task force that produced a publication, a national publication called the Forum Guide to Privacy of Student Information. And also through the National Forum of Education Statistics, I was part of the Policies, Programs, and Implementation Committee. I have excellent research skills, I believe, and writing and critical thinking skills that I think would help me make an informed decision and add value to board discussions and decision making. I'm very knowledgeable on the Open Meeting Law and Data Practices Act, which is important for public officials to be versed in. Okay, thank you.
I believe with my multiple positions that I've held, I've had to be on many boards, and I've had to write reports for those boards, understand what they wanted. As a principal, I also had to understand finance and all building functions that go along with that position. As the director of a chemical dependency program, I had to follow all the Data Privacy Acts and all those kinds of rules and regulations. And when I was in Grand Portage, I also had to report to a parent committee and the tribal committee, the board of the chairman and the tribal committee up there. I was also, we built a new school while I was there, so I understand those kinds of things, and I understand old buildings and new buildings. Whether you use the old ones or the new ones, there's pluses and minuses to all. I just feel that with my background and different positions that I've had, I have some skills to bring.
Well, I have quite a bit of, I don't like this mic. I have quite a bit of experience, both on a personal and a professional level. On a personal level in the community, as I mentioned, I was active, or remain active at Resurrection Catholic Church. During the 20 years I was on the Finance Council and as a trustee with the church, we really started doing a lot of things with Gilbert. I think when I started that position, we didn't do anything with Gilbert. And in fact, it seemed like there was some rivalry between the two parishes. But with the leadership of the priests that we had and the guidance of the diocese, by the time I left that position, we basically shared a priest. We do a lot of things together, yet the parishes are completely and 100% independently, do a lot of things on our own, we do a lot of things together. The coaching that I did in dealing, with the young people and the things that go along with that, I really enjoyed that. In addition, I served leadership positions with the Eveleth Men's Golf Association. I'm currently the president of the Eveleth Gilbert Football Boosters. Also, from a professional perspective, I've served on numerous for-profit and non-profit boards, including being chair on several of them. I served 6 years at the St. Louis County Community Development Block Grant Board. I served on the Governor's Task Force on Capital Access in 2011. I really think that one of my primary skills is that I'm a relationship builder. I'm skilled at developing a consensus, sometimes in difficult situations, or if you can't develop a consensus, at least find a solution that everyone can live with. I have very strong financial, quantitative and analytical skills, and I just think I can help out on the board with that. Thanks.
Okay. Come up to the next question. I know I'm going to be more conscious of my sound into the mic. But moving on to the next question here. We'll start again with Darlene on this. So the question is, what do you identify as any of the district's strengths and weaknesses? How would you sustain any strength or overcome any weakness?
I believe one of the strengths of this district is that we're a small town atmosphere, and we've always taken care of each other. And I remember back when Eveleth Gilbert merged together, my kids were a part of that. They were in like 5th and 7th grade at the time, and it was quite the experience to live through. But you know what? The two towns pulled together and they made it work. And I believe that can happen all through the career of Eveleth Gilbert Schools. A weakness, I think, in my opinion, could also be the community. And I don't mean individual people, I mean uninformed. If you have uninformed information, you can't make the right decisions. And I think that we need to make sure, I think we do a pretty good job of that now, but we need to make sure that the community knows and is well informed before any decisions are made about anything. Declining enrollment is one. I know that. I mean, and we can be informed all we want, but that doesn't make declining enrollment go away. I'd like to see that happen, is to come back up again. And I believe if we give kids and students what they want, need, hopefully they'll come back.
As far as the strengths, and this is the one question I asked for a little help from both of my boys, and I got the same answer from both of them without hesitating. And these were in completely separate, one wasn't where the other one was. They said the teachers, and I really do believe that. I think particularly the curriculum that Joe has gone through has prepared him to go into a 4-year engineering program next year better than any other curriculum that he could have found anywhere, frankly, in northern Minnesota, or at least on the Iron Range. And that includes the PSEO options that are out there for kids to go to the community colleges. Another strength I agree with Darlene is the community, that the community really cares. On the weakness end, Darlene hit on it. That was number one on my list, and that's declining enrollment. And I think the reasons for this, I mean, it's not just the demographics. I mean, there are fewer kids out there, but if you look at it, you know, with open enrollment, particularly districts are busing. I mean, in Tower a few years ago, they had 5 districts driving down their main street picking up their kids, and a ban from Mountain Iron because 3 kids or 4 kids from one family went to Mountain Iron. So open enrollment, but there's other competition out there. It's the charter schools, the internet, the home-based schools, PSEO. So there's just a whole lot of competition. Second one that I have is inefficiencies within our district. I believe we have some of the highest operating costs in the state. Obviously, if money is going for operating costs, it isn't going into the classroom. And they're just, I think there's too much wasted space in our buildings. And the last one that I had for as far as the weaknesses, the failure of the district to get any non-traditional dollars. By non-traditional dollars, I mean monies apart from the property tax dollars. As far as maintaining the strengths, I think the community will take care of itself, take care of our teachers. As far as the declining enrollment, I think we just need to become more competitive in offering students more. You just have to right size, I think, our facilities. And as far as trying to get any non-traditional dollars, just come up with a plan and execute.
Well, I also believe that Eveleth Gilbert's dedicated staff is a big strength. But I think I would work toward, for further success, increased opportunities for professional development and collaboration, analysis of data for the students, student data for the teaching staff, and increased opportunities for career growth for our other staff. I feel that respect and trust among all players in an organization has to be earned and then maintained. When I was previous on the school board, I helped to institute the district's labor management committee, but unfortunately it went by the wayside along the way. If elected to the board, I would work to resurrect that committee or some other form of employee relations program. I would work to support, appreciate, and recognize our employees for the good work and success, and would work to create an environment of fair and equal treatment across the board. I would advocate for the statutorily mandated meet and confer meetings with professional staff, and would advocate for the same type of meetings with the other support staff, even though it's not mandated for them. Also, I would work to retain our staff by paying them what they are worth and what's commensurate with the salaries and benefits of surrounding districts. I see the time is running out. I think an asset are campuses. I have, I see. It's going the other way. Okay, so then, well, the campuses I don't think are liabilities. I think they're assets, but we should support finding uses for them rather than demolishing them. I think they have value, and we could use them, sell them, market them for other purposes because of that value, but that has not been fully explored, I believe. To demolish them would cost a lot of money, would cost millions, and selling or utilizing them in some way could generate money and not spend it. I agree with Darlene about the size of our district when it comes to extracurricular and academic opportunities for students. Sometimes, smaller is better for reasons of participation and extracurricular activities, and even some academic areas like band and choir and some of those other things. You can become too big where students' opportunities for participation become limited because there might be more student interest in the opportunity. For a school its size, I think Eveleth Gilbert offers many student participation opportunities and with more personalized attention without students just becoming another number. I believe another positive is that our district has cooperative relationships for cost savings and non-duplication of programs and services with such things as we share vocational courses with Virginia. We have a special education cooperative with the Alternative Learning Center, Northland Learning Center, Northeast Service Co-op for purchasing in large quantities, and we have a shared business manager now with Virginia. So some of the weaknesses, I have to disagree a little bit with you, Matt, with academic achievement, because researching some of our test scores in the past quite a few years, Eveleth Gilbert has testing with MCAs in math, reading, and math, reading, and writing. She's given me the.
Could wrap it up here.
Yeah, I'm almost there.
Yep, just
Okay.
finish this last
Well, anyhow, I think we could do better in our academics, and our ACTs have been steadily declining. But the other concern I share with both of my candidates would be the open enrollment. We lose more students, open enrollment students, than any other school district in our area, and we actually lose the most of them to the Virginia School District, a very high percentage. Thank you.
Thank you. And this next question, moving on, Matt. So I'll start with you, and the question goes, considering the numerous reports, meetings, and discussions in the past few years regarding the school district's campuses and facilities, what is your position regarding the district's campuses and facilities? Upon what do you base your position?
Sure. And if I might just back up for 1 second before getting into this, I'm not a fan of standardized tests at all. I think they're, so often what happens is you end up with teachers teaching to the test because that's how they're evaluated. And when they're doing that, they aren't teaching kids how to learn. And there could be some of that going on. I just think the opportunities are there for our students to learn at a high level right now. Moving on to the question, we just simply are maintaining too much space for our enrollment numbers. There's inefficiencies throughout. We need to right size. I certainly don't know what the answer to that is. I definitely agree with Polly that if there are facilities out there that aren't being used, that aren't in the plans for use in the future, that to find an alternative use for them. I don't know whose job it is to find an alternative use for them. I don't believe that the school itself or the district is charged with developing real estate, but certainly if you can find a use for the facilities, if someone steps up and says, I want it, give it to them. And that would be ideal. And let's get creative in trying to market them. But we do need to right size, because I really think that the operating costs are really holding us back. Combined with the declining enrollment, that's not a good formula.
Number 4?
She will next after Paulina.
Holly answered number 4. Did you already?
No, I start with Matt.
Oh.
What's my position regarding the district's campuses and facilities, and upon what do I base my position? All right, again, I view facilities as assets, not liabilities, and I support finding uses for them. I agree totally with you, Matt, that if somebody's interested in them, we need to give really serious and open consideration about that. Because I think they have value, whether we can find those uses or not, but we need to fully explore that. And demolition costs a lot. And we don't know where the demolition dollars would come from. I know there's conversation in the current discussions with the Eveleth, Gilbert, Virginia Academies model committees and things that there's certain things that are not included in the numbers that they're giving us, and demolition is one. Other facilities and activities, site acquisition and things like that. Those are all numbers that are not worked into some of their estimates, and I know they are estimates at this time. But I would work to create relationships with Eveleth and Gilbert City Councils and other interested parties that might work together for the common good of the communities. But I think a tremendous amount of time and money has been spent trying to find out and decide what to do with these campuses and facilities, and I think we need to concentrate a little bit more on educational and curricular part of it. I think we've neglected that somewhat, and I think we've been concentrating too much on that. I think that you decide what kind of education is best for your students, and then I think you design buildings and building plans and facilities around that. I mean, one comes first, I think, and the second is secondary. So I guess I just have a thought here that any goal, vision, or mission starts with determining what's important to be accomplished and then working to that end. Our ultimate goal should be determining what we believe to be the best educational experience and configure the facilities and buildings to support them. That's just what I said previously, but I had it written down too, so.
As I mentioned earlier, I attended school here in Gilbert. I didn't have the opportunity to go to Eveleth, but nothing much has changed here since I went to school, and that was 1972 I graduated. My house was built in 1910. I like giving stories because it kind of explains about how my thought process is. And in my house, I've had some remodeling done. Well, I decided I'm going to remodel more. I want it updated and I want it upgraded. So I had a plumber come in, and the plumbing that was in there was right above the electrical box. So the electrician couldn't do anything till the plumbing was moved. I mean, here we go. I thought I could just have a tub put in. Nope. You're going to fix all the plumbing because it's above the electrical box and it won't go here and it won't go there. So then, dollars later, I get my tub. So then I get the electrician there, and he's going to put some electrical work in, and I'm on my second electrician. The first one did a Band-Aid job, which doesn't make me very happy because now I'm paying to get those fixed. And so now I have the electrician there, and he's putting all new wiring in, and he says I'm lucky my house didn't burn down. I love the house, I won't give it up. I like what's in it. I want to keep it. But it's costing me an arm and a leg to keep it. But I can afford it, so I'm doing it, right? There's always room for improvement. But again, I built a brand new school when I was a principal, and that was 20 years ago. Just to put in one outlet was $80. It costs money to build, it costs money to fix. That's why I said.
Okay, for the next question, we'll start with Pollyanna. What is your perspective concerning any district collaboration, cooperation, or consolidation with other districts or entities?
Well, I was on the school board when Eveleth and Gilbert were separate districts, and they first began by pairing and sharing. And then we moved into our first vote for consolidation, which failed. But I supported that vote. I supported that move. I wasn't on the school board for the second consolidation vote, but I worked as a community member with other community people for a positive result, and that did happen. And I believe it was a good thing. So I'm not against consolidation per se, and I support the current collaboration with other districts and entities that we're doing now. And I'm open to other opportunities of collaboration or cooperation that might benefit our students, our district, and our communities. But that being said, I'm still a strong believer in thorough research and study before any important large-scale decisions were made, and I think you alluded to that too, Darlene. I believe we all think that. Matt, you made a comment to that too, but you need good, solid information before you make important decisions.
I mentioned this earlier that I too lived through the consolidation with Eveleth, Gilbert, and my kids lived through it, and they were actually pretty excited about it, and it all worked out well, and they both graduated. So I think that we're doing a lot of collaborating right now, and we're sharing and pairing certain classes, and we're busing people to and fro. And our district does offer a variety of classes, and some classes that aren't offered, those students are going off. And we're losing kids because we're not offering certain classes. I think some kids, not all, but I am on the communications committee for the task force. So I'm getting all that information, and it's good information. Can we collaborate with a new building, or can we do it in our own buildings and continue doing what we're doing? That remains to be seen. They're in the research stages right now. Don't have any solid information yet that's going to go anywhere. Again, we have to make sure the community is made aware of everything that will be going on. I don't know, I think we do offer some decent classes here, and the kids are getting a good education, I feel, so that's it.
Well, first I'll say that I think some of you know that no one bleeds gold and black more than I do. that being said, I think it's absolutely, it's necessary that we have some sort of substantive collaboration with Virginia. And I mean, it's Virginia. I mean, look around. You know, Cherry, they have their refurb school. Mountain Iron has their brand new $35 million school. They have about a very new school over at Mesabe East. So, I mean, Virginia's the one that's left. And I think if it's done right with Virginia, that it's only going to provide additional opportunities for our kids, and that's what it's all about. You know, and I'm not saying that right now, I don't think we're ready to start talking about a consolidation, but certainly we need to collaborate. We need to offer, I think, a lot more things through Virginia, a lot more things where you can really get your arms around it. And I don't know if it's the academy model or not. I mean, as Darlene says, we're still in the research stages, but we need each other. And I really believe that. And if you look at, you know, if you could combine those offerings, we still aren't a big school. With graduating classes in the 60s here and graduating classes, I believe Virginia is about in the 90s or 95s. I mean, heck, I graduated from Aurora White Lakes in a class of 202 kids. I never did think that was a big school. We had all kinds of opportunity. We had more opportunity because of that. And I just think we need to do something, again, of substance with Virginia. I don't think we're ready to start talking consolidation because there's just too many questions. There's questions with finance. There's just a lot of questions. If you're able to do something and the outgrowth of that, say, some years down the road as you're talking about an full-blown consolidation, that would be wonderful because that would mean that the first steps worked and everyone was on board.
Okay, this question, I'll start with Darlene. So my question is, what do you view as the most important educational aspect that affects students? What would be your priority in addressing that aspect?
Not meeting individual needs. That's really important. None of us learns the same. Do some of our learning styles overlap? Yes. Some don't. We need to meet all those needs of all students. And short of doing a song and dance in front of the classroom, like I felt I was doing every single day, we need to be really creative. And you can do it. It just takes time. It doesn't take workshops. It doesn't take extra training. It just takes sometimes teachers working together. What are you doing that works? Well, I'm doing this. Well, I'm going to try that. You know, we've got to get all the kids' needs met. And every one of them learns differently. Again, I'm going to tell a story. My curiosity got me in trouble when I was in kindergarten. Back in the day when I was in kindergarten, that was like in the 50s, you remember. You were seen and not heard. You sat there and you didn't do much. There was a picture that was taken, and I still have the picture at home, and the teacher was sitting at the piano, and all the little kids, all us kindergartners were sitting on the floor, supposed to be looking at the teacher. Who was not looking at the teacher? Who was not following the directions? Me. I'm the only little kid looking at the camera. If someone would have explained to me what was going on, what the camera was, I mean, I don't even know what a camera was. Maybe I wouldn't have turned my head to look. But again, I was being curious. That system failed me that day because they didn't explain to me what was happening, number one. They didn't see that I was looking the wrong way. And after, they should have explained to me what actually happened. That's how I feel. In a former district that I was at, we were required to write personal learning plans, individual learning plans, for all students, K through 12. Is that a lot of work? Yes. It's almost fringing on special ed. But with those personal learning plans, each student, and you have groups, you might end up with 5 students in this group, 10 in this group. They're all going to fit into a certain spot, but you're going to be teaching to those different needs. They need to be excited to go to that class. They need to be engaged.
Well, I obviously don't have the background in child development that Darlene has, and I really enjoyed her answer, frankly. What I would say as far as this is, I think it's really important, particularly in the young formative years, that you're able to build a strong base with the students, and that will allow for more options and more opportunities for them moving forward.
Just gonna check mine. Maybe you can switch quick here.
It's okay?
Yeah.
Anyway, you're right, individual needs, we're to meet the needs of all of our students. And I think we also need to try and bring out all of their best talents and qualities, because everybody has them. Matt, I agree with you that testing isn't everything. You're right.
Let's try this at least.
So I think this works.
Yeah, testing is only one measure of achievement and success, but the state of Minnesota has now instituted a more inclusive, batch of indicators, and they're calling it the North Star Accountability System. So they use multiple indicators to determine if students are achieving learning and if schools are being successful. But again, I want to go back to the question about strengths and weaknesses, and I want to expand a little bit more, not to be negative, but Eveleth Gilbert scores are mediocre at best. We are scoring in MCAs, and I know that's only one measure, but there are other things. I mean, we have that. We can't just be subjective. The state requires the standards. The state requires this testing. We've got to start somewhere. And being average, being the state average, I think, is not good enough. I think we can do better than being average. And we had a little bit of trouble this year too with the new North Star accountability indicators. 2 of our schools are going to be receiving extra help with Northland Services Cooperative with the Regional Center of Excellence. And I hate to say that our ACT college readiness benchmark scores are declining, and that's not good. The ACT actually considers the college readiness benchmark scores as, quote, a measure that is much more meaningful than an average composite score for a group of students. And so I'm thinking perhaps our district needs to investigate and study with the top scoring schools in state standardized tests, ACT tests, and other measures of success, see what they're doing, and maybe emulate those types of educational initiatives. I think one thing that our district can do to help the situation is we have not had the state-mandated staff development and curriculum advisory committees in this district. And I think that's very serious. That's where the teachers and community people come together with staff and administration, and we analyze instruction, teaching, curriculum, student achievement, and that needs to be reinstituted. It's very, very important. We've done without it. Again, curriculum and academic performance is number one.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you there, Billy, so we can keep it going, thank you. I'll go back to Matt for this question. So my question is, explain your familiarity with the recently proposed academy model of education.
I've been following this fairly closely. I know it's an innovative model that's used in several districts in the state right now. I think most notably everyone talks about Alexandria, and several of the several groups went down to visit the academy in Alexandria. Basically, as I understand it, in grades 9 through 12, students will pursue one of several career paths, if you will, that would be a little bit more focused and intensive in the respective area of study, whether it be industrial technology or business or math and engineering based curriculum. And while you'd get your general studies like you do everywhere, you would be more intensive, specific to what you're looking at doing. I do think the model certainly has a great deal of promise. It seems to me what it would seem to benefit the most are some of the students that frankly we're losing, whether it's to the charter schools, or they just do the homeschooling or whatever. I think they stand benefit the most. They work closely with the business community, and there is a lot of opportunity in the business community. I mean, manufacturers everywhere, including on the range, are crying for people. They're saying they aren't finding the people with the right skills. I think there's a lot of promise with the academy as far as that goes. There does seem to be some confusion out there as to whether a student in 9th grade picks his path of choice and whether there'd be any flexibility there. I'm hearing it both ways. I believe that what I think is the conventional wisdom in that is that you wouldn't be stuck if in 9th grade you thought you were going to pursue a more business-related curriculum, and by the time you got to 10th grade, you decided that you'd rather choose more of an engineering-based per se. You would have the flexibility to move, and it would really make a big difference for me as to how I looked at that, is if in 9th grade you were wired in for 4 years and you wouldn't have any flexibility to get out of a particular career path that you chose.
Well, I've attended quite a few of the Academy model meetings. I attended 2 of the Academy model meetings, 3 facility meetings, 2 finance meetings. There was 1 site selection meeting I attended, and last night there was a large group of all of the focus group task forces giving kind of a summary of where they are to date. But the committees are going to continue meeting and working on their goals. Finance committee has worked up and is still working on many scenarios of what the finances would look like under different scenarios, and that there's just a lot of information that we don't have yet. I've been studying materials from the task forces. I've gotten their binders, their folders, their charts, their graphs, and I've been doing some research on my own also. I understand that in January the school boards will be discussing, synthesizing, and making a decision as school boards, and then it will go to the communities. So at this time, it's just gone so fast. There's so much yet to do. Even the consultants yesterday said that in the amount of time that our communities have been running these task forces, some communities take months and months and a year or more. And I just want to make sure we do a good job. We have all the right information, like my co-candidates have said. And so I personally, I think it's just too early to come to any conclusions at this time. But ultimately, the citizens of both communities will decide, and whatever that is, I will support that.
I believe I mentioned earlier that I'm on the communication committee with this task force, so I am familiar with the academy. Each and every one of you can go online and look at, I believe it's alexandria.k12.mn.us. And you also type that in on YouTube, and you can see a video of the academy model if you're not familiar with it, okay? There was a press release today. It was in the paper. It also is on the Eveleth Gilbert website, and it breaks down each of the 4 committees and kind of gives an outline of where they're at with their meetings. I was a displaced homemaker. I worked in housekeeping at the hospital before I started this whole long career of everything else. And I didn't want to clean toilets for the rest of my life, so at the time, they had testing through AEOA. And what you do is you'd go in there, and Skip Ferris was there, and I think he's still there, bless his heart. And what you do is you do these hands-on activities, and there is some written work also. But you do all these activities, and then he analyzes it and spits it out and tells you what career paths you should do. So this isn't a new concept. This has been around for a long, long time, that there are ways to find out what you are good at. And it doesn't just tell you one thing, it gives you 2 or 3 different choices. That's why I went into secretarial to begin with, because that was something that I was interested in. iPads are not enough in the classroom. Kids, I've been subbing in the high school. I have my elementary license, but I can also sub in the high school. And even with iPads and computers, kids are disengaged a lot of times because you have the teacher up in front talking, and the assignment has to be done on the iPad, and then you email it to the teacher. And it was great when it first came out. The kids were just eating it up like crazy. Wow, look at this new technology. But as time goes on, we're losing that interest again. And I remember back in 10th grade, I walked into a classroom because I took typing, okay? Now back in 1970, right? Manual typewriters. Some of you may not even know what they look like or have never even seen one. But I'll tell you what, they were really hard to push those buttons. And when I walked into that classroom, my eyes lit up and I said, wow. And the red and black ink on the ribbon was just awesome, because you could flip a thing and you could get 2 different colors. Well, I'll tell you what, that piece of equipment challenged me every single day, because I learned what letters were where. Then you started timing yourself, and then you had errors, then you could get words, and then you could put sentences down, and then you had this correcting tape that you could have. And that whole year, every day that I walked into that classroom, I wanted to be there.
That's it.
All right, next question I'll be starting with Pollyann. Okay, and the question is, what are your views on the roles and relationship between the school board and the superintendent?
Well, basically, a school board and superintendent work together. A superintendent is the district's figurehead. He's general supervisor, fiscal manager. He makes budgets and other recommendations to the board. He evaluates principals, makes reports to the Commissioner of Education that are required, and he carries out.
superintendent's goal is, superintendent's role is to provide enough information for the school board members to make informed decisions, and I think it's the responsibility and role of school board members to make sure they have adequate information making those decisions. So it's a two-way street.
So, and then we're
Did you answer that one?
jumping over, so then it'd be Darlene. Yep.
I agree with everything that Polly said, and I also would like to add that there has to be a certain amount of trust between all employees, whether it's the school board, the superintendent, principals, teachers, custodians, secretaries, all. And if I've missed someone, but there needs to be a trust. And I think the school board also does some advising, they can advise, and then information has to be gathered. You can't make any decisions until information is gathered. And even if that information is presented to you, and if you're not happy with all the information that you've got, you don't have to vote on it. You can table it till next time, or get more information until you're comfortable making those decisions.
As both Polly and Darlene said, the superintendent is the chief executive who works for the board. They work collaboratively on proposing initiatives. The superintendent vets the initiatives of the board. It is obviously a high-level position. The superintendent shouldn't be involved with low-level day-to-day operating type decisions. Over the years, I've at the agency, I've worked for 14 different boards and 6 different commissioners, and likely for sure a new board and likely a new commissioner coming in the next few months. And I've seen a lot of different styles, and I've seen a lot of effective board members and a lot of effective commissioners, some more effective than others. And it can be a wide variety of styles. It isn't one particular style that I've seen that is effective as opposed to another style.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, we're going to go right back again. I think everyone answered that question, so we'll go to Darlene with the next question. And that question is, how would you ensure fiscal responsibility in the district?
Again, my background has warranted that I do a lot of budget work as a principal, as a director, as a grant writer. I've always had to, and there's certain guidelines you have to follow. It doesn't matter if it's a Blandin grant or a grant from the state or whomever, wherever the money comes from, there's always guidelines that you have to follow. January is budget time for school districts. The superintendent, the business manager, of course, can make recommendations. There are certain line items that have to just stay where they're at. And then there are other line items that follow certain criteria that you can do this or that with it, but you have to meet this other criteria. And then there's other line items where you can move some money around. It's not a lot, but it's there. And you have to trust that you hired people like bookkeepers and superintendents and principals, because the principals are in charge of their buildings, their budgets. You have to trust those people to give you the right information. If there's a question, of course, you're going to question it, and you're going to find out what's going on, and you're going to maybe say, well, I'm not sure why this is that. But again, we hire people to take care of that stuff, and when we as a board vote on it, if there's something we don't know, then we ask. If we don't get the answers, we find somebody who does have the answers, and then we make an informed decision.
For me, this is a real easy one. You become more competitive as far as attracting additional students, as far as on the revenue end, and you become more efficient on the expense end.
Well, fiscal responsibility, to ensure it, By statute, board members are required to take training in school finance in conjunction with MSBA within 180 days of taking office. I just kind of read that out of the statute. And that training includes accounting, financial operations, long-term financial planning, budgeting, expenditures and revenue information. And so it's complicated, and I think board members need to have at least a decent grasp of it, and I just don't think that a one-day training by MSB is adequate. So I would encourage as a board member that we have more in-depth training more from MSBA or the ARC, Area Regional Computing Consortium. I'd welcome that and promote that. MDE or any other online or other resources. Because I've been following school board meetings now for a long time, even since I've been off the school board, and I've seen past and present board members even become frustrated because of the complexity of certain issues like school finance and lack of enough information and timely information to make those decisions. You're right, Darlene, you need to trust that you're going to get enough and the right information from those people that are educated in that. So I would seek more understandability and availability of financial data for both board members and the public. Our district actually has been running about a 5 to 6 million unreserved fund balance, and that's higher than regional average of about 3 million and higher than Virginia's, that's about 2 million. Now, some might say that high fund balance is partially due to the tax royalty monies, but Virginia gets those royalty monies too, about half as ours, but with all the, this is in your territory probably, that when I was doing some research, Virginia and Eveleth get about the same amount of total different category of taconite monies. So some of those monies have to be used for certain purposes. They're called reserve funds, and others are general purpose funds, general funds. And some of the funds that I'd be interested in knowing more about and have a concern about are, like, say, the gifted and talented funds. I know that districts receive $13 per student for gifted and talented, and our school got about $12,000 this year, but we have a fund balance of about $38,000, and I don't know what it's used for. I'm hoping that it's being used for those purposes. Like, again, we talked about meeting the needs of all students, and I just would want to investigate that, how those dollars are being used and how those students are being served. Another area that I have a concern about and questions about is our staff development reserved funds. We have over $208,000 in those funds. I haven't heard, or I don't think the board has been told what those funds are being used for, and especially because we don't have the required state statute staff development curriculum advisory committees. So I think that's really important to reinstitute those committees. They have an integral, probably basic, central part in what schools are all about, what we're all about, teachers, board members, students, and community.
Thank you. Okay, next question I'm going to direct it towards Matt. Today we live in a technology-driven world. Describe your position on the integration of technology in our classrooms.
I'm probably not a good person to start with this question. If it was up to me, we would still be getting phone messages on those little slips. But we do our best to try and adapt. And I'm 100% with Darlene. I don't know how students can learn on iPads, but that's their generation and they seem to be able to do it. I absolutely couldn't function with one of those, or to take a class without a book. I just don't know how you would do that, but I guess that is what it is. Everyone's going to it. I think the important thing is maybe fixing the cordless mics. But other than that, just make sure our buildings are able to adapt to the changing technologies.
Well, I lose track of who's next. Later too. Well, I've always thought that technology is just a tool, and that you should first determine what needs to be learned or what skill needs to be acquired, and then you get the right any tool, technology tool or any other tool to fit the need and fit your purpose. And so there should be well thought out purpose, I think, for the use of technology before implementation. And I think going back to staff development and professional development and teachers, they need sufficient training to utilize technology to its fullest. One thing about technology I feel strongly about also is about the privacy and safety of students and parents in regard to the use of it, which includes software, devices, online uses and surveys and sharing of data, and who data is shared with outside of. That comes back to Data Practices Act and safeguarding information. So I think as far as what are my, well, it doesn't ask about I guess I'm just basically literate in basic programs. I have a personal Facebook and education related Facebook page, and I've got some course credits in multimedia, graphic design, and video editing. I don't think I'm any more or less technology literate than anybody.
And Darlene?
I am not very technology literate. I struggle, and my 9-year-old grandson helps me with things. If I can't figure out my phone, he's like, okay, here. It amazes me what kids can do. I mentioned this before, that iPads aren't the only thing that students need. I think there needs to be more hands-on activities. Because we're just going from a phone to an iPad to a computer. I mean, here's a story. In Cherry, where I taught, we had Mr. Running Horse come, and he was a math specialist, and he observed our classrooms and gave us scenarios of what to work on with a lot of manipulatives, hands-on, student-driven assignments. It was really hard as a teacher to give up that instruction time, and it took me a year to really feel comfortable doing this stuff. But the last 2 quarters of the first year, he gave me a challenge. He said, I've heard of this fireside teaching. And I'm like, okay, so what is that? It's like when people sit around a campfire, everyone's visiting and everyone's talking, and if somebody brings up a subject that they're interested in, they all contribute. And he said, if you could try to get your students to do that, that would be awesome. All right. So the first thing we did, without technology, is we got some paper out and we drew a huge bonfire. And we pasted it on the wall in the front of their classroom. We said, that's our bonfire. And I explained to the kids, this is what we have to do and this is what we're going to work on. And we had just gotten a new math series, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we'll see how this goes. Not that I threw them into this just blindsided, but throughout the year we'd been working in small groups with a leader and people helping, and so they worked together as small groups. But this was a whole classroom of 30 kids that I had to get to teach a lesson, to follow through with it, and come out. And it worked. Those kids were so excited. They didn't need technology, but they needed that hands-on manipulatives. They needed that visual of the fire, and they had a purpose, and they did it. And there's just things we can do as teachers without technology too.
to make those kids get in there and be excited. We didn't use iPads. We used our hands, we used manipulatives. They had to carry it out and do it themselves. That's it.
Okay, we have one more question left here. For community members, if you have any questions written on cards, or if you haven't yet, you have something pending in your mind and you want to get out, write down the card. Make sure it's focused in towards school board topics. Okay. I'll ask this question, then we'll take a small break to gather cards, read through them, and we'll come back and do that and let you guys do a closing statement. Okay. This question in my rotation, Pollyanna, you're going to start with me, okay? The question is, what is your opinion concerning the district's communications and relations with students, parents, staff, and the community?
Well, I have a little personal problem with this one because I believe that the current district policies regarding public input, they've been changed in recent years, and I think that they're currently unwelcoming to the public and restrictive for public input. I just have to be honest about it. There's certain things that they've actually changed the policies to say, and I just don't agree with it. If I were on the board, again, I would expand opportunities for public input. I would allow the public to talk during agenda items, which they are not allowed to do at this point. I would not require them to request to speak under visitor input. Visitor input is part of the agenda, and I would think if anybody at any point in time, not at any point in time to say what they wanted just at any time, but under visitor input, somebody might think of something just before that agenda item comes on, and I allow them to speak. I'm not afraid of what the public has to say, and I think any school board chair that is competent knows how to keep decorum and handle the public. I think public input is very important because board members, we don't always know everything, and if somebody has some good input to give, I'm all for allowing them to say such. That's about it. I'll just forego anything else.
That goes to Doug.
Oh, okay. At this point in time, I think it's fine. We could improve on community information, and I'm really glad that I'm on this communication committee. Even though it's for a different purpose, I'd like to bring that here. One of the things that we talked about there is the channels. Not everyone has internet, not everyone has Facebook, not everyone knows how to navigate to get the information that they need to from the school. And I know people watch TV and they have those public announcement channels, Channel 2 and 13, 11. We're talking about maybe putting something on there so people are more informed there. Doing a newsletter of some sort. That way everyone would get it because it goes out. I mean, a lot of time, it's all online now. And here we go with technology again. It's not reaching those people that don't have those abilities. So there has to be some kind of paper mailing, and maybe there needs to be some research done or a sign up that you're not familiar with the internet, you're not able to get that, and you could sign up for a paper copy. And maybe just certain households could get those. I mean, I think it's, here we go again. We've got a huge thing out there, this exciting thing that's happening, and if the community is not informed, you're not going to know what to do. So I really believe that has to be looked at a little closer as far as getting that aspect of communication out. That's it.
From a parent's perspective, I think the communication is pretty good, and I do think don't we have a newsletter? a couple times a year
A couple
anyhow?
times a year. I just think it should, oh, it's not my turn to talk.
Oh, no, feel free.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
Other than that, I think it's good to have the board meetings accessible electronically. That's very helpful. You can get a lot more from actually, watching something than just reading the minutes or even reading verbatim what's said. I do agree with Polly to a point that visitor input should be more welcome as far as to have a specific agenda item for visitor input, but I don't think it'd be difficult at times to control a meeting if you're getting public input during the actual business part of the meeting.
If I could just make one comment, I don't have a student in school right now, so I don't get that newsletter. So we're missing some people.
Oh, I didn't.
So,
I would definitely agree with that then.
I don't have a child in school, so I don't get the newsletter.
I know I get used to get the Cotton newsletter all the time.
Okay. I think we're just going to take maybe, I don't know, do we have any questions for people to
No.
bring to our potential board members? Yay, nay? But I guess, okay, then we'll make this quick and easy. So I'm gonna have you guys wrap this up and do your closing statement for me. I'm gonna go right back to the beginning, and then I'm gonna start with you, Darlene.
I would like to let you know that I will try my best with my comments or actions not to make the board or our community look poorly. I've watched school board meetings in the past, and as a Gilbert resident, I've been embarrassed by some of the things that go on there. And we're not the only ones that look at these. There's outlying communities that look at our school board meetings. And I don't want them to think or to feel embarrassed for me or our district. Or I don't want them saying, oh, they don't have their stuff together. So I want you to know that I will try my best not to do anything like that. I want our community, our board, people to have pride in what we're doing.
I just think that basically, everything I've done really leading up to this point has made me a good candidate for the board. I consider myself to be pretty insightful, and I'd be a stable influence on the board, and I definitely agree with Darlene. We have to be perception is reality in some cases, and we do need to be careful with how we handle ourselves. I would be honored to serve on the board and would work tirelessly to see that the best interests of our young people, current and future, would be well represented, and would appreciate your consideration. But most importantly, more importantly than voting for me, frankly, or anyone else, is please get out and vote. That's the most important thing. Thanks.
And I agree that board meetings and other committees, whether public or subcommittees or anything like that, yes, you can operate efficiently with civility and decorum, and you can respectfully disagree. But that's not to say that strong opinions should not be voiced. And you can't hide things either. And I think if people are honest but respectful, you can have civility. And I have no further closing comments, and I would just also encourage everyone to go out and vote. Thank you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Once again, I'm just going to say thank you for the candidates for being here. Thank you for your willingness to want to be part of this. Thank you for all the community members who were able to make it today. Thank you for the Teachers Union once more to set this up. And thank you for anybody who's going to be watching this. Again, voting coming up November 6th. Be there. Thank you.